Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. The Tom and Jerry movies tend to be cash cow bargain bin slop or mediocre babysitter fodder, but you might find a decent flick here or there. Today, I'm going to be ranking every villain from this franchise. However, I won't be counting the live action film because I've talked about Terrence enough times on my channel. Plus the Forbidden Compass is off the table too, due to how it's not coming to the UK until next month. With all that said, let's get ranking. King Fing from Tom and Jerry blast off to Mars. When Tom and Jerry end up on Mars, the Martians assume that their visitors are actually invaders from Earth, so their king calls for a war on Earth. This royal is a rather rash alien leader, and his frequent habit of immediately accepting things as facts can be concerning. From believing that Jerry is the Great Gloop right away, to brashly trusting an advisor that the cat and mouse are Earthling invaders.
So, try to take over Mars, will you? Earthling!
Instead of doing any research or investigation himself, this king prefers to act entirely on emotional impulse. I also wouldn't say that he even cares about his fellow Martians, because Dan can be a coward in times of peril or panic.
There are no such things as giants! A giant!
Fing is the leader of an entire planet, yet he's alarmingly volatile and fragile for someone in such a responsibility-demanding position. Disappointingly though, once Fing decides to wage war on Earth, he pretty much vanishes from the rest of the movie. Sure, I could easily praise the Martians' devastating takedown of a NASA-like base, or how their giant robot minion dominates as a mecha juggernaut, but it's hard to completely credit these accomplishments to Fing when he's absent for the whole finale. Fing could have communicated military strategies to his invader fleet, or maybe even served as the pilot for the giant robot. Look, I get that this is a wimpy king, but he could have done either of those things from Mars. What a waste of a potentially fun space villain. The King of the Cats from Tom and Jerry A Nutcracker Tale. This royal rapscallion has taken over the toy kingdom and imprisoned every toy. But the brave Prince Jerry vows to restore balance, so His Highness sends Tom to lead an army of cats against the mouse. The King of the Cats does start off as a very promising threat, as he aggressively storms the toy kingdom with a merciless takeover and oppressively steals the throne in glee. However, once he's accomplished this first step, he ends up leaving the rest to Tom and his team of soldiers. Or while His Highness himself just lounges about and passes the time by forcing toy slaves to entertain him. Seeing as Tom himself is doing all the heavy lifting and strategizing, His Majesty is reduced to just being a comic relief palace guard, which sure, does have its funny moments.
Lake time!
Your Majesty, I have some... What is going on here?
Me and the little ballerina are playing keys.
But doesn't exactly paint our villain as a worthy leading menace. Heck, Jerry and his friends actually face far more intimidating and scarier obstacles than the king on their adventure.
Let me see the tongue-tied patient. I have special methods for restoring speech.
What's even more disappointing is that when our heroes finally wage war against the king, His Majesty just becomes a clueless and useless coward. We don't get a big exciting prince versus king showdown akin to the original ballet because His Majesty is too busy button mashing the run option. Look, I'm all for a comedy villain that pokes fun at tyrants for being blowhards, but not at the cost of making our final boss into an easy as pie defeat. Nutcracker Tale may be one of the more charming Tom and Jerry movies, but this guy is no rat king, and quite easily the weakest aspect of this flick. The Wicked Witch of the West from Tom and Jerry and Wizard of Oz. When Tom and Jerry land in the fantastical world of Oz, they try to catch up with their friend Dorothy, while also having to deal with the Wicked Witch of the West. This movie may be a redundant animated remake of the classic 30s film that ends up abridging Dorothy's quest into a series of cliff notes. The Wicked Witch herself actually starts off as an encouraging villain, all because her first scene lets her be a legit and creative foe for the cat and mouse, and develop a personal grudge against the pesky duo.
I'll get you, Tom and Jerry!
However, all of this potential is washed away because the rest of the Witcher's screen time is nothing but pointless beat-for-beat reenactments, which makes analysing this film feel fruitless, because the OG movie did the exact same things, but with the added perk of the iconic Margaret Hamilton as the witch, which wore that fine line of entertainingly campy and legit childhood nightmare fuel.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
sure Lorraine Newman does a decent impression of Margaret's witch.
Well, well. Ring around the rosy a pocket full of spears. Thought you were pretty foxy, didn't you?
But to be honest, I would have much preferred a freshly different take on the character's voice, one that would belong uniquely to Lorraine. Oh and yes, this witch's animation is notably fluid, but that smoothness means very little when said animation is still just copying Margaret's homework. Meanwhile, Tom and Jerry's efforts to thwart the Wicked Witch is just a tediously dragged out series of gags revolving around collecting water. The Wicked Witch could have been the saving grace for this very unnecessary movie, but she's just as soulless as everything else in this cash grab. August Critchley from Tom and Jerry Cowboy Up. Before going into this movie, I 100% predicted that the villain would be your cliche land grabber who wants to nab a ranch that Tom and Jerry are working at. I was, annoyingly, right on the money. Yep, this generic western comedy is that creatively bankrupt and formulaic. However, to be fair, I did find myself appreciating how the film doesn't make August completely bland. For example, he stylistically leans into an emerald green colour scheme, a traditional colour for evil and the symbol for jealous envy. I'm always down for colour-coded villain aesthetics, so this was kinda neat. Oh, and August has a horse sidekick too, who can add some decent menace to Critchley as a steed, but is also exceptionally smart and humorously humanized as a silent cartoon animal.
Ha! Think you're pretty smart, don't you? 2 + 2 = 4.
Not to mention, despite having cliche motives, August does end up executing a surprisingly layered plan, one that requires him to take his time and patiently plant the seeds for each next step.
I want you to go to the Benson place, find the deed to the ranch, and destroy it.
Although, said villain scheme is mainly in the hands of his dopey minion, who doesn't exactly make for a subtle mole and mainly gets by through sheer luck.
Meatloaf, deed to the ranch, pineapple jardiniere, deed to the ranch.
August is as conventional as Western villains come, but there's enough seasoning on his evil salad to save him from being lower on my list. Chip from Tom and Jerry The Magic Ring. This teenage dark wizard is trying to perfect a potion, but he needs to head to Calcutta to fetch a special ingredient, and he puts Tom in charge of protecting his magic ring. Despite his short screen time, Chip still makes a lasting impression as an animal-abusing, mysterious sorcerer who demands perfection from his minion. The wizard refuses to accept failure of any kind, and Chip hangs the cruel threat of homelessness over Tom, which is enough to give the cat frequent day nightmares about a possible daunting outcome. Unfortunately, despite Tom's efforts to save the ring throughout the film, it ends up getting stuck on his finger, and Chip impulsively mistakes this clumsiness for intentional thievery. The wizard refuses to understand the situation or let Tom redeem his slip-up. It's almost like a part of him maybe wanted Tom to fail so that he could have had an excuse to hurt his pet. The salt in the wound is how Jerry ends up with Tom's fish reward and inherits the magic ring's powers, even though he's guilty of tampering with the ring in the first place. Heck, this mouse even experienced the first-hand struggles of getting it extremely stuck, yet he still refuses to sympathize with the cat's same predicament? Cheeky bugger. Is Jerry really the villain? Captain Kiddie from Tom and Jerry the Movie. This former children's entertainer ends up rescuing a comatose Robin, but he soon turns on the runaway little girl once he learns about Aunt Fig's $1 million reward for Robin's return. Now, Kiddie does not come across like your traditional cartoon villain. He's this friendly clown of a man who is initially very caring towards Robin.
How are you feeling, little lady? Are you okay?
I feel a little dizzy.
However, behind his goofy personality is a rather tragic and weird character. A retired kids entertainer who once travelled the world, who's now been reduced to managing a run-of-the-mill fair, where his only friend is a puppet that never leaves his hand. Oh, and said puppet gives off very creepy vibes, not just because it's ambiguous whether he's been controlled by Kiddie or not, but also due to how he clearly represents the captain's dark side, almost like he's the devil on Kiddie's shoulder.
What do you mean you're rich? You mean we're rich?
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Once the captain decides to go rogue, he does shrewdly use the fun and whimsical appeal of his fare to lull poor Robin into a false sense of comfort, something that the more obviously evil villains in the film can't do.
Please, oh please let me down. Don't send me back to Aunt Fig. She hates me. Please don't send me back.
Unfortunately, that's as far as Kiddie's prowess as a villain goes, because from here on out, he lets his growing madness or slowful laziness get the best of him, only for him to be defeated by another baddie's own clumsiness. Dr. Applecheek from Tom and Jerry the movie. When Tom and Jerry cause a ruckus at the evil Aunt Fig's house, she eagerly pays Dr. Applecheek to take care of them, but this veterinarian is actually a twisted ghoul that's terrible to animals. I will say that Applecheek does a pretty good job at committing to his front as the perfect vet. Not only does he stay 100% in character when he answers the door, but he's also vainly decorated his shelf with pet care prizes and photos. It's no wonder that he's managed to keep his dark secret for this long. As a villain though, Applecheek is a proudly cruel man, and it has to be said that his scheme is very cunning, as he's been catching rich owners' pets and then selling them back for profit. It's a messed up but clever crime idea. At the same time though, Applecheek also gets a sick sense of joy from the barbaric side of his scheme too.
Get rid of the 2 new ones. Pristine figs paid for the privilege of doing them.
Then, once Tom and Jerry free all of Applecheek's stolen pets, his entire stinking operation is over. But thanks to some sly spying, he gets to craftily sneak his own position in the $1 million race and possibly make back his losses. Yes, he arrogantly cuts off his minions from set price, which is pretty stupid of him, but kudos to him for then instinctively grabbing the nearest vehicle to him without any shame. Okay, so it's a rather mediocre racing transport, and Applecheek only briefly gains the lead when a cocky lickboot screws up, but we have to commend the vet's commitment, even if he does end up foiling himself in the end. Pirate Brothers. From Tom and Jerry, Shiver Me Whiskers. These 3 siblings were once very close and used to bond over their shared love of treasure hunting, but now they've become bitter competing swashbucklers. While these are family-friendly Hollywood versions of pirates, they're still legit dangerous captains that not only show a willingness to abuse Tom and Jerry, but also endanger animal lives in the name of piracy.
There will be some Fing to me mascot.
Sure, the joke that 2 of them can only speak in yar and have to be translated by their parrots can only go so far in terms of comedy, but I still like how the film humanizes these minions like they're office workers.
How's the job going?
Hey, Betty. Oh, you know, he mutters the same indecipherable growl. I translate it as best I can.
Unlike most villain trios, these brothers share a very murky sense of loyalty, because they already have a history of double-crossing, and this can make for some rather tense truces, as any potential partnerships aren't exactly standing on solid ground.
We are gonna finally find the treasure of the Spanish man.
Oh, yar.
Oh, sure.
What I find the most funny though, is that these pirates squabble and bicker so much that Tom and Jerry themselves go, this noise, and search for the treasure all by themselves. It's just so hilarious that these siblings are so toxic to each other that even history's most famous cartoon rivals can't stand them and go on to prove themselves as the better treasure hunting team. Dr. Doublev. From Tom and Jerry Snowman's Land. After Tuffy and Jerry befriend a magic snow mouse, evil toy inventor Dr. Doublev mistakes the snow mouse for a fancy electronic toy and hunts down our heroes on their road trip to a potential home for the snow mouse. This pathetic and callous man is so successful as a toy tycoon that he immaturely spends most of his free time just bullying his failing rival shopkeeper, going as far as to make business decisions purely out of spite.
But if you'll excuse me, it's about time for my event to begin.
Oh, I know what time your event starts.
Although, I'm kind of split on how this creep ties into the movie's message about toy ideals. On the one hand, I do like how LePage's products teach kids how toys don't need to be electronic to be fun.
We all have a little magic in us. The magic of imagination. You and your snowbud can go on all kinds of fantastic adventures.
Oh, and it is funny how Doublev is so cynical about handmade toys that he can't fathom the very idea of children enjoying something that doesn't have batteries. On the other hand, the movie seems to be also bitterly against the very idea of electronic toys in general, even though technology can have educational, creative, or emotional benefits for kids too, as long as they're used in moderation. I'm all for calling out today's kids' gadget addictions, but this movie's take on the problem is a bit too black and white, and screams of old man yelling at clouds energy.
Oh, that Doublev and all his trendy newfangled nonsense.
Saying that though, I do like how the movie 100% commits to Doublev's techno-villainy and lets him go ham on his huge gallery of stacked gadgets, each of which act as useful tracking gear or effective Mario Kart style tricks.
Sponge darts!
Of course, his magnum opus is the ominous Destroy-O-Matic. Something that stinks of being made more for villains than children. A super mech that's not just built for battle, but can also cleverly adapt to outdoor terrain. Luckily though, said vanity project is what bankrupts this greedy fool.
You don't take play money, do you?
Moriarty from Tom and Jerry meets Sherlock Holmes. When Sherlock and Watson team up with Tom and Jerry, they must crack a case involving a series of diamond thefts being committed by a trio of cab thieves, who turn out to be working for Sherlock's own nemesis, Moriarty. Now, yes, Moriarty is yet another Tom and Jerry villain who lets his minions do all the hard work and interact the most with our cat and mouse. However, Moriarty does make a few spooky appearances to build up his presence, and his crafty minions work very well as vivid extensions of their master, as they utilize retro-futuristic technology that all come from the twisted mind of Moriarty himself, and do their part in leading Sherlock on a wild goose chase.
And this may be just the clue we need.
What is it?
So, when Moriarty is finally revealed, we feel like we kind of know him already, because all of his henchcats' diamond heists were technically reflections of his villain aesthetic and persona. Sure, the mystery itself is pretty simplistic and shallow. I mean, the movie practically hands easy clues to Tom and Jerry on a platter half the time, but the movie slightly compensates for this by letting Moriarty go ham as a mad scientist supervillain in the finale, and giving him the chance to go full steampunk evil, as he confidently fights our detective hero with dynamic swiftness and relies on his intricate, genius gadgets to adapt to any annoying setbacks.
A horseless carriage? Well, now I've just about seen everything.
I do not expect Sherlock fans to approve of this version of their favourite villain, but considering what little this paper-thin film offers to kids, Moriarty ends up being the show-stopping highlight.
And it all works so perfectly on paper.
Prince John from Tom and Jerry, Robin Hood and his Merry Mouse. While King Richard is off fighting in the Crusades, his man-baby brother John has partnered up with the Sheriff of Nottingham to take over England and tax England's lower class dry. The main appeal of this villain is how much fun the movie has with his ridiculous love of money. It's essentially his main personality trait, and the movie never runs out of funny ways to exaggerate his bizarre fetish. Outside this running gag though, what we have is basically a decent and acceptable take on a classic British folklore villain. Nothing special or remarkable, just okay. He spends most of the film obsessing over money or fantasizing over vanity projects that he could buy, but he doesn't live in a bubble, and he can acknowledge that his high life could be spoiled at any moment. When push comes to shove, he can become engaged in villain plotting with the sheriff or strategically implement different minions into each aspect of his scheme.
My spies have just arrived from France. What news have you of my brother?
On top of this, he's totally prepared to grab a blade and tag team with his co-conspirator for the finale, as he showcases a knack for sword fighting that you wouldn't expect from such a sniveling character.
Take that, Mouseketeer!
Although, John is still a gutless coward, so of course he ends up going out with a whimper as a tyrant. The Skull from Tom and Jerry Shiver Me Whiskers. In this pirate-themed movie, Tom and Jerry fight over a treasure map but soon learn that it's been cursed by its owner, the legendary pirate captain Don Diego Calypshias, aka The Skull. At first, The Skull seems like a helpful voice of warning, but as soon as his curse is activated, he reveals himself to be a typical shady and entitled buccaneer with an equally dead crew that happen to be still loyal to him. There's also something maliciously greedy about how he's become such a grubby treasure hoarder that he's willing to strike a hex on anyone who dares to nab his golden jewels, which, may I remind you, he most likely all stole as a pirate. Not only that, He won't even let Tom and Jerry go near his unused treasure unless they pass a series of tasks. Oh, and he's so confident that they won't survive them all that he acts like each challenge is going to be their last.
Farewell, fools!
Now, yes, most of these tasks are pretty easy, either because they're really simple or the threat will just defeat itself. However, that's the joke, and kids will be too busy laughing to care about these low difficulty stakes. I mean, it's genuinely funny watching this over-theatrical and ominous supernatural being melodramatically hyping up his next test of merit, only for the fall to be shown up quickly, or even face degrading humiliation as the literal solution to an obstacle.
Hey, what are you doing?
The Skull is trying his very best to play off his intimidating legend, but at the end of the day, he's just a dead Spanish bloke with an afterlife complex.
I guess I do not need a hoard of cash. It is not like I go out much. I am a skull, for crying out loud.
Ginormous from Tom and Jerry's Giant Adventure. This villain is like if Willy the Giant got a hunky makeover and a slightly bigger brain. He's basically a kaiju-sized jock bully, voiced by Biff himself, Tom F. Wilson.
Fee-fi-fo-fum, bring out your gold, 'cause here I come.
But he's not a witless oaf like most takes on this character. No, he's actually a very efficient and controlling tyrant who has managed to remain in power without ever being opposed. Sure, he's now drained the town dry after getting carried away, but he's also been sensible enough to securely lock up his hoarded wealth. I'm not saying he's a genius, but he's still a very attentive and no-nonsense giant who can't be easily distracted by childish entertainment. Hence why our heroes have to later creepily resort to desperately appealing to his gross libido.
I'll be Snow White to your Prince Charming. Tell me about a bedtime story.
The townspeople are able to keep Ginormous preoccupied for quite a long time, but one little blunder from the safe-cracking team cuts things short, and our evil giant leaps straight into combat mode, not only demonstrating an exceptional level of natural strength and jaw-dropping athleticism, but also a knack for creatively countering our hero's own attacks.
I do banish. Strum this harp and you shall vanish.
While this movie's ending does follow the classic fairy tale, it still goes all out for the giant's fall. Dr. Zinn from Tom and Jerry Spy Quest. In this crossover with Johnny Quest, Tom and Jerry team up with Johnny and Co. to rescue Johnny's father from the diabolical Dr. Zinn. I was quite surprised. The Warner Brothers brought back this outdated Cold War era caricature of Asians for 2010's audiences. That aside, this is still a pretty fun supervillain, brought brilliantly to campy life by the always perfect James Hong.
It really is too bad, Dr. Quest. We could have been quite a team, you and I. We could have ruled the world!
I'd best describe Zinn as a tech puppet master, a high-intellect villain that harnesses technology to outwit or spy on our heroes, with each gadget or mech enhancement flourished with a retro yet stylish flair. Although, Zinn doesn't always need his advanced technology to pull the strings, because basic violent threat can be enough for him to build his dream villain project.
First, we must test the sphere, because if it doesn't work, you'll be seeing your son in the crab pit.
Zinn isn't taken too seriously as a baddie though. Heck, I would argue that behind all of his grand technology and impressive island, he's just a big man baby, and his immaturity did sometimes get a laugh out of me.
Fish sticks again? This is the third time this week! I hate fish sticks!
While the joke that Zinn overestimates our clumsy hero's accident proneness for slick skills isn't a new one, it's still darkly funny how far the Doctor takes this naive assumption.
Nothing is safe around here until the devious feline is dispatched! I want him shot on sight. Bang!
The most intriguing thing about Zinn though, is that he keeps his actual villain scheme totally vague for a big chunk of the film. It's a level of mystery ambiguity that you don't expect from a kids movie, and I doubt the children's theories will be as bonkers as the truth.
I devised the means to harness this energy to create the greatest, most glorious warship the world has ever seen!
Lickboot from Tom and Jerry the movie. This sleazy lawyer has been working with a greedy woman called Pristine Fing to weasel their way into the trust fund of his client's daughter, Robin. Lickboot had every chance of just being a snivelling minion to Fig. I mean, it's even in his name. Instead, he's his very own villain, and a pretty dang good one at that. Firstly, he brings a lot to the table as a partner to Fig, thanks to his background as a well-practiced lawyer. He can be a voice of cold, hard facts to a cocky Pristine.
But it's true, Pristine. Without Robin, Daddy Starling's trust fund money will go bye.
And his investigative knowledge of his clientele help him to be moves ahead of a runaway Robin.
Know where they're going? How do you know?
Lawyers know everything.
That's the thing. Lickboot is very much the brains of this trust fund scheme, and I don't think that the emotionally volatile Fig could have done this crime alone.
Oh, well, that's easy. A reward.
A reward?
Yes, people will do anything for money.
It also helps that Lickboot is a surprisingly furious driver, which becomes a very essential tool once the villain duo gain competition. Heck, Lickboot is such a swift driver that he can even keep directly up with a riverboating Robin. However, as corrupt as this lawyer is, he does have a better sense of compassion than his partner. Sure, he's still a scumbag, but I think it's intriguing how he has differing morals to his co-conspirator.
Robin, the house is burning down. You must get out before it's too late.
The internet might have turned this villain into a meme, but I actually think that he's pretty underappreciated. Aunt Fig from Tom and Jerry the movie. What makes Fig so compelling is how emotionally messy she is. She's scarily incapable of controlling her moods, and it's seriously engaging to see how she will handle every wrench thrown her way.
We'll be...
Don't say it!
Poor.
Penniless.
Bankrupt.
No more money?
She's also a narcissist who totally owns her cruelty and evil like a badge of honor, and disturbingly enjoys abusing the power of being Robin's guardian.
As for you, orphan, for running away, you're going to bed without dinner.
Although, despite Robin's frequent escapes, Fig bizarrely refuses to raise her security measures beyond locking a bedroom door at night, which is a little annoying.
She's escaped again! I've got to call Lickboot.
While Fig does have a wicked temper and boiling anxiety, she is able to sometimes stabilize herself and put on the sweet charms to avoid suspicion, a chilling switch that raspy voice actress Charlotte Ray effectively pulls off with impressive versatility.
Gotcha, you little... darling?
See? Here she is.
Fig's partnership with Lickboot is quite riveting too. They're polar opposites as criminals, yet bring the best out of each other's villainy, while also amusingly teasing a brewing, flirty tension.
Oh, I love it when you talk like that.
Even though I'd still argue that Lickboot is the brains, that's not to say that Pristine is the dumb one, because her obsessive overthinking can be a weird strength, from sternly defending her more valid worries to her dismissive partner.
Maybe every bone in his body is broken, if we're lucky.
But he's alive!
To strategically organizing the villain side during the madcap race.
Spread out and don't let the brat get by you.
While we sadly don't get to see this duo in handcuffs in the end, it's still very rewarding to see the creeps being humiliated as punching bags for comedy. J.W. Globwobbler from Tom and Jerry The Fast and the Furry. This eccentric loudmouth TV producer is excited to broadcast a high-stakes race, and has invited Tom and Jerry to enter the circuit. Once this live event becomes a rating smash, Globwobbler abandons all efforts to keep the show going. This sleazemaker is utterly off his rocker, and delusionally mistakes unrestrained chaos for creative branching, all while he sees his contestants as expendable gimmicks for spectacle entertainment.
The leg of the race between Antarctica and Australia will be held underwater.
In this producer's eyes, logic and safety come second to random whim and shock value, as he stretches the race's track as far as he can, without any concern for each contestant's survival risks. Heck, most of the competitors either face creepily ambiguous fates, or worse, actual death. Oh, and not even the general public can escape this villain's relentless driver ratings, because the final part of the race is basically one big global path of destruction. The thing is, as wacky and over the top as Globwobbler's race is supposed to be, I can't say that it's that much of an exaggeration of actual reality TV. And I'm not even being melodramatic. So many of JW's unethical decisions eerily reminded me of real-life controversial TV contests that also took things way too far. I did not expect the satire for a straight-to-video kids movie from the 2000s to have aged this dang well, but here we are.
So if this frail old lady snaps through the rotten wooden slats of this ancient bridge and falls to her doom, we'll just have to go to a commercial.
Draelda from Tom and Jerry, The Lost Dragon, a nuisance which has been banished forever from a hamlet. But years later, she plans to get her revenge, and she just needs a baby dragon to make it all happen. One thing that I like about Draelda is that there's nothing generic or plain about her sorcery, because the film gives every single one of her spell casts or potion mixes a visually arresting pizzazz of flavorful animation. That is not to say that Draelda is all fancy spectacle. Heck no. She's a heartless and sick woman who will happily exploit poor innocent animals or emotionally manipulate her already socially outcast niece, Athena, only to then frustratingly play self-pitying victim once her awful actions face societal consequences.
The only one being mistreated around here is me.
There's also some tactical thought to her villainy as well. She may be an operatic diva, but she's also a keenly observant witch who knows how to triple her chances of baby dragon hunting success and read her opposing enemy's weaknesses.
You're too old, and I'm too powerful.
Sure, Draelda does eventually triumph as a villain, and dang does she relish in her newfound power as a vengeful dragon. However, all while this horrible woman has been plotting a comeback, she's gradually been losing a claw-like grip on her niece, and our heroine has become the complete opposite of her evil aunt. It's this very fact that's essentially Draelda's ultimate folly, as the very animals that Athena has been sheltering come to a helpful aid, including the brave Tom and Jerry themselves, and Athena finally stands up to a childhood boogie woman without using any dark magic.
And just what do you think you're going to do with that?
The Gnome King from Tom and Jerry Back to Oz. After Dorothy returns to Kansas, the evil Gnome King takes over Emerald City, and our heroes must reunite to dethrone this scumbag. While the first Tom and Jerry Oz movie was a stale and pointless imitation of the 30s film, the sequel goes for its own thing, while also apparently paying tribute to lesser-known Oz books. So we end up with a far more unique and original villain. This baddie might seem like your typical royal usurper, but his throne stealing isn't that straightforward, because his entitled motivations are richly backed up by Oz history, and this takeover comes with the extra threat of a forced relocation.
The city is sinking!
Step on it, Jerry!
Sure, the Gnome King is pretty much inheriting the remnants of what the Wicked Witch left behind, but he utilizes these stolen artifacts incredibly well, and even exploits magic items that the witch never got to use herself. However, this villain's biggest advantage has been the king of an underground society, because his side of this war is made up of expert diggers who can quake and crack the earth in battle.
Let's shake it.
Although, there's a neat double-edged sword to this upper hand, because the gnome's own tunnels can also be used against them, and that can make for some entertainingly ironic wins.
Careful, men. We don't want to start it.
The king himself also has this engaging and fun rockstar vibe to his villainy, which brilliantly comes through in his rhythmic character animation, and not one, but two dazzling villain songs.
"'Cause no one's getting in my way. Now let me hear the people say.
Oh, and I freaking love how once the Gnome King steals the ruby slippers, the shoes themselves fluidly adapt to their wearer's own punk fashion, and we get this fabulous rebrand.
To you, they're ruby slippers. To me, they're blood red boots.
Fortunately, a united alliance of different Oz cultures becomes the very thing that stops this colonizing majesty. Before I reveal my number one pick, I'd like to announce that my next villain's ranking video will be decided by my patrons. Here are the exciting choices for this exclusive poll. Become a patron today to make your villainous vote count. The Sheriff of Nottingham from Tom and Jerry, Robin Hood and his Merry Mouse. I went into this video with no idea who I'd choose for my number one pick, but the sheriff honestly took me by surprise as a worthy winner. He may be an intentional parody of Alan Rickman, but he also happens to be a well-written kids movie baddie with his own standout strengths. To begin with, he has a solid chemistry with every character in the film, all because he stays consistently active and alert as a conniving crook. Whether we're talking about his begrudging partnership with the idiot prince, or his seething personal rivalry against the dashing Robin.
It simply will not do.
Oh, yes, it will. The famous Robin Hood, caught in my little trap.
The sheriff is also an incredibly cunning strategist, and is essentially the logical mastermind that keeps the royal conspiracy's cogs turning. There are so many examples of the sheriff's ability to exploit weaknesses, think far in advance, and pay attention to detailed risks.
Oh, the mouse is nothing, sire. What matters is with its capture, we'll find the traitor.
It's actually scary how intelligent he is for someone so gross and creepy.
You know, I could spare you from that fate if you agreed to be my wife.
I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man on Earth.
The sheriff's added benefit is that he's also exceptionally competent at medieval combat. Not only is he a slick archer, who doesn't need to cheat to impress spectators, but he's also a skilled swordsman that gives us the best blade action in the whole film. Sometimes, the finest villain of a franchise is right under our noses, and the sheriff proves that.
This is all your fault, Sheriff of Nottingham, idiot!
Feel free to watch my other villain ranking videos, folks. I've been Jambareeqi, cheerio.